that she was being followed. Filled with terror, she ran home and locked herself in her hut. After a few minutes, Uchechi heard a loud bang on her door, and this sent shivers down her spine as she feared that the evil creature was after her. Uchechi kept silent as the banging continued for a few minutes and stopped. Still shaking in fear, Uchechi remained in her hut when she suddenly heard a voice talking behind her. Once upon a time, in the busy Olu market, lived a popular hair braider who was known as the Silent Braider. The villagers arrived at the market one morning and met her sitting in the corner, braiding the hair of a woman. They were all shocked, as no one in the village had ever seen her before. However, the woman never uttered a word to anyone, so the people named her the Silent Braider, as they all believed that she was deaf and dumb. Shockingly, on her first day in the market, several women stood in a long queue as they waited to get their hair braided by the strange woman. She braided their hair so beautifully, and her unique braiding style attracted more women to her little corner. The other hair braiders in the village became so jealous as all their customers no longer came to them for their hair. They all preferred to braid their hair with the Silent Braider, despite waiting in long queues, and this made the other braiders wonder who the Silent Braider was and where she had come from. One day, a hair braider named Nonso decided to stay back late into the night to trail the Silent Braider to her hut. Nonso was so curious to know who the Silent Braider was and where she lived, so she waited back in the market, hoping to follow her home once she was done. However, Nonso, after a few hours of waiting, slipped into a very deep sleep. She woke up a few minutes later and noticed that the Silent Braider had gone. Nonso was so disappointed and wondered when she fell asleep. Nonso decided to try again the next night. She returned home so sad and went straight to bed. Nonso had a dream where she saw the Silent Braider shouting hysterically at a group of people who were locked up in a cage. Nonso woke up so terrified as she recognized most of the villagers as people who the Silent Braider had recently braided their hair. She was so confused and wondered what her dream meant. She got to the market the next morning and met a group of women waiting to have their hair braided. Nonso felt a strong urge to warn the women about what she saw in her dream, but when she approached them, they perceived her to be a jealous woman who could not withstand the fact that the people preferred the Silent Braider to herself. Nonso retreated back to her corner as she felt so terrible about what had just happened. She began to doubt herself as she watched the Silent Braider braid the women's hair one after the other. At that point, Nonso began to feel as though she was truly jealous of the Silent Braider, and this troubled her as she decided to move to another market. The next morning, as the Silent Braider's queue continued to build up, a young woman named Uchechi, who had been on the queue for hours, sat down to braid her hair. Uchechi was new to the village and was in search of a good braider when she was directed to the village market. She arrived the market early and met a very long queue. She wondered why so many people were queuing for only one woman, when other braiders sat idly waiting for customers. This looked strange to Uchechi, who decided to also wait in the queue for her turn. After a few hours, it got to Uchechi's turn, and the braider gestured for her to sit down. As the Silent Braider began to braid Uchechi's hair, Uchechi drifted into a very deep sleep and found herself being dragged into a cage by the silent braider. Uchechi struggled with the braider for some minutes as she broke free and began to run. As she was running, she saw a lot of people locked up in a big cage, and this terrified her as she suddenly woke up from her slumber. Uchechi had never been this terrified in her entire life. She wondered what the dream was about, but kept calm as she noticed that the silent braider was still braiding her hair. Uchechi then reached out for her purse and brought out a small mirror to look at her hair when she caught sight of a terrifying monster standing behind her. Uchechi, terrified at what she saw, screamed at the top of her voice as she stood up in fear. The people wondered what could have happened, and before Uchechi could voice out what she saw, the braider disappeared into thin air, and everyone opened their mouth in shock as they witnessed the hair braider's disappearance. The people were petrified as they began to question who she was. Uchechi explained what she saw to them, and everyone could not believe that an evil creature had been braiding their hair for months. Uchechi, determined to get to the root of the matter, looked around and saw the hair braider's wooden comb on the ground. She picked it up and began to examine it. She saw some weird symbols on the comb and wondered what they could mean. Sensing that there was something strange about the comb, Uchechi decided to seek the guidance of a very powerful woman. She arrived at the powerful woman's hut, wielding the comb in her hand, and immediately the powerful woman caught sight of the comb. Her eyes widened in shock. She explained that the markings were symbols of a very dark spirit who traps his subjects and subjects them to pain and suffering. The powerful woman revealed that anyone whose hair has had any contact with the comb would live a very painful and sad life filled with misery and misfortune. Uchechi, on hearing this, was terrified at what would become of her now that the braider had used the comb on her hair. She asked the powerful woman what she could do, and the woman revealed to her that the only way to reverse the curse of the evil comb was to trace the comb's usage to the first person in the village whose hair was ever braided with the comb. The powerful woman then told Uchechi that once the person is found, the comb should be used to loosen the person's braids, as that will break the curse and set everyone free from bondage. Uchechi, now armed with the knowledge of how to break the curse, embarked on a mission to trace the comb's usage back to its roots. She consulted with the people who sold items in the market, as well as other hair braiders, but no one could recall the first person who ever warmed the stool of the silent braider. Uchechi decided to return back home, but had a strange feeling that she was being followed. Filled with terror, she ran home and locked herself in her hut. After a few minutes, Uchechi heard a loud bang on her door, and this sent shivers down her spine as she feared that the evil creature was after her. Uchechi kept silent as the banging continued for a few minutes and stopped. Still shaking in fear, Uchechi remained in her hut when she suddenly heard a voice talking behind her. Uchechi turned in fear and saw a pale-looking woman standing right behind her. "Who are you, and how did you get into my hut?" Uchechi asked as her voice trembled with fear. The pale woman introduced herself as Nneka, saying that she got into the hut through an open window. "What do you want from me?" Uchechi asked, and Nneka revealed to her that she was the one that she had been looking for. Nneka revealed how things changed for the worse after the silent braider braided her hair on that fateful morning. She watched as her life crumbled before her eyes and wondered what could have gone wrong. All her children fell sick and died within a short period of time, and her husband left her because he believed that she was cursed. Little did she know that the silent braider was behind all her misfortune. Uchechi was so happy to have found the woman that she had been looking for. She convinced Neka to follow her to the powerful woman's hut, and when they arrived the hut, the powerful woman asked for the evil comb, which she used to loosen Neka's braids. As she was loosening the braids, the evil creature appeared, and the powerful woman began to recite some powerful words as she continued to loosen the braids. With every stroke of the comb on Nneka's hair, the evil creature groaned in extreme pain. Uchechi watched as the evil creature dissipated into thin air after the powerful woman successfully loosened all of Nneka's braids. The powerful woman, with a smile on her face, declared that the village was now free from the evil grip of the evil creature. All the innocent people, whose spirits were once caged by the evil braider, were now free, and the people jubilated as they danced and showed their gratitude for their freedom. The market of Olu, once shrouded in misery and fear, now thrived as the other hair braiders, who had been overshadowed by the silent braider, regained their customers, and the village returned to its lively self. The lesson to be learned from this story is that blindly following trends without questioning or understanding them can be so dangerous. We should all learn to be discerning and seek knowledge rather than blindly following the crowd. Also, trust your instincts and don't dismiss warning signs, as our intuition serves as a valuable.
Once upon a time, there was a girl named Bola. She lived in a small village with her blind grandmother. Bola and her grandmother were very poor and could barely feed themselves. They did not own any farm or animals in the village, and Bola would go around begging other villagers for food. Many people despised them and were not willing to help them with food, even when they knew that they were very poor and starving. Only one farmer called Baba Deji would give Bola food whenever she came begging. Baba Deji was not wealthy himself, but he had a small farm where he grew yams and other small vegetables, so he would always make sure that he kept some food for Bola, as he knew she would always come for food. One day, there was famine in the village as the rains had stopped falling. Crops and animals began to die, and hunger began to fill the land. The few villagers that had some food left were not willing to share their food, as they were afraid of what would happen when they ran out of food. Bola and her grandmother were starving, and when Bola would go out to beg, no one was willing to give her food. Even Baba Deji did not have food left, as he was starving as well. Bola returned home hungry one day, and seeing how her grandmother was suffering, it broke her heart deeply, and she wondered, what can I do to help my grandmother? Bola's grandmother began to fall sick as the hunger was now unbearable, and Bola could not bear to watch her grandmother suffer any longer. So she went out in search of food one night. That night, Bola set out into the forest. It was so dark, and she hoped to return home with some food for her grandmother. As she walked around the forest, she could not find any food. Then she began to cry. Immediately, she remembered a song her grandmother used to sing to her when she was a little girl. Then she began to sing the song. She sang and sang and sang whilst crying. As she was singing, an old man approached her and asked why she was crying. Bola was scared because it was so late in the night and she was alone. But she spoke up and told the man about the famine in the village and how her grandmother was suffering because they had not eaten in days. The old man smiled and pointed towards his sandals laying by a rock and told Bola never to wear the sandals, but that whenever she wanted anything, she should first sing the song he just heard her sing and then make her wish, and that anything she wished for would come true. However, the old man warned Bola never to wear the sandals or tell anyone about it, and that a great consequence awaits whoever goes against the rules of the magic sandals. Immediately, Bola picked up the sandals and looked up to thank the old man, but he was nowhere to be found, so she hurriedly rushed home with the magic sandals. When she got home, her grandmother was groaning in pain, and Bola decided to wish on the magic sandals. So she began to sing the song her grandmother taught her. Then, after singing, she wished for the sandals to grant her food in abundance. Immediately, several food items appeared, and Bola could not contain her joy. There were yams, plantains, vegetables, even fresh fruits. And she could not believe her eyes because it had been a while that they had a proper meal. So she hurriedly prepared food for her grandmother and rushed to Baba Deji's hut to give him some food. He was so happy and confused at the same time. How did you get this much food? He asked Bola. She couldn't reveal her secret, so she laughed and told him to eat up. Baba Deji ate the food, but he was confused as to how Bola got her hands on this much food, because even before the famine, they could not afford this type of food. He was confused and hoped he wasn't dreaming. Bola went back home, and whenever her food finished, she made another wish. And whilst everyone in the village was hungry, Bola, her grandmother, and Baba Deji were feeding fine. One day, Bola heard a cry in the distance, so she followed the sound of the cry. And on getting there, she saw Binta, who was the daughter of Madame Bimbo. Binta and her family have been so wicked to Bola and her grandmother, and they always insulted Bola when she came to beg for food. There was even a time when Bola came to beg Binta for some food, and instead of Binta to give Bola food, she threw the food on the floor for her dogs and chickens. Binta was very wicked, but Bola paid no mind to all Binta had done to them in the past and rushed home to get some food for Binta and her family because she saw they were starving. When she arrived at Binta's house with the food, Binta was surprised. She immediately called out her family and they rushed all the food. They ate and ate and ate that they didn't even notice when Bola had left their house. Bola was happy to help as she could not bear to see people hungry. That night, Binta and her sister came to Bola's house to spy on them. They could not understand how Bola could afford the food she brought to them. They peeked through Bola's window and heard her singing. As they were looking, they saw a very bright light coming from the sandals on the floor, and immediately the room was filled with different food items. Is this what she does to get food? Is this how she gets her food? They said to themselves. They were in shock, so they ran back home to tell their mother. When they told their mother about what they saw, Binta, her mother, and her sister devised a plan on how to steal the magic sandals. So late that night, they all set out on their mission, and when they got to Bola's house, Bola and her grandmother were fast asleep. So Binta tiptoed into Bola's room and quietly picked up the magic sandals. When they got home, Binta immediately wore the magic sandals, chanting, magic sandals, give us plenty food. Magic sandals, give us plenty food. But nothing happened. She tried and tried, but nothing happened still. So she took up the sandals to let her sister and mother to try their turn, to see if the sandals would listen to them instead. They then began to notice a hot sensation on their skin. Their bodies began to itch. Balls began to grow out of their skin, and immediately the sandals disappeared and returned back to Bola's room as if nothing had happened. In the morning, Bola heard some commotion outside and she rushed to see what was happening. Then she saw Binta, her mother and sister, running around the village, screaming and itching their bodies. Everyone came out to see what was happening. Bola was confused and wondered how they got balls on their body. The pain and itch was too much to bear, but they could not bring themselves to admitting what they did, as the traditions of their village stated that anyone who steals will have to dance naked around the village square. So Binta, her mother and sister, made a vow never to reveal what they had done the previous night, and so they lived with their balls instead. Bola got into her room and wondered to herself if the magic sandal would be able to end all the villagers' suffering by restoring the rain and providing food for everyone. So she began to sing the song her grandmother taught her. Then she made a wish for there to be rain and abundance of food, and immediately rain began to fall, and the villagers saw animals trooping into the village, and soon later, crops began to grow and the famine ended. Bola was so happy as she and her grandmother never lacked anything, as the sandals granted their every wish. The lessons to be learned from this story is that situations are fleeting. Because you are not lacking today does not mean that the situation cannot change tomorrow. We should always try to help people in need, however and